Tom,
Pleasure to have you here. God bless.
Thank you very much, Ames. Good afternoon, everyone. Put my glasses on here. I am so humbled to be here with all of you. God bless you for taking the afternoon to be here the whole day. And God bless you for your work and your diligence to save this nation and to make the state of Oregon and your hometown a place that you're proud of, and that the spirit of liberty can dwell forever for the sake of our generation and our future generation. The Gathering of Eagles, what a profound title. It's a great brand. The eagle, the symbol of America. It's not just any eagle, it's the bald eagle. The bald eagle. I learned something from many people today, Governor Jim Gilmore, Leader Tom DeLay, and we're going to hear soon from Congressman Bob McEwen. Great people, great statesmen, great leaders. They've paid the price. I love listening to everything they say. There's so much wisdom. They're great mentors. Don't you agree, the speakers we've had today? Another statesman, mentor, I think he's the best philosopher America has in the country today, is Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson. And I learned something from Dr. Ben Carson's book, One Nation. Learned it the other day, Ames. He said, the bald eagle, the symbol of America. We think it's bald. We think it's called a bald eagle because the eagle looks bald. But in fact, the word comes from an Old English term, piebald, which means crowned with whiteness. Crowned with white. So I just want to leave you with that fact. When you think of bald and bald eagles, it really means a symbol of the highest noble essence of America. Ben Carson writes for the Washington Times every week, and he did an op-ed piece. I'm giving you three little examples of the value of the Washington Times. He did an op-ed back in June. He's on a book tour. I'm not here to sell his book. I just really appreciate it and recommend it if you haven't got it to read this book. He and his wife were traveling around the nation. He says, we wrote One Nation to try to convince our fellow Americans that we the people are not each other's enemies, and that our strength is derived from unity and common sense, which should be ubiquitous. The real enemies are the forces that are constantly trying to divide and conquer. They create divisions based on race, gender, age, education, and especially income. It's important that we discuss who the purveyors of division are and what drives them to seek a radical alteration in the American way of life. He goes on to say, and I'm going to drill this into the Washington Times and something you can do. One of the major themes in this book is that knowledge is the formidable enemy of falsehood and a formidable ally of truth. And there are specific steps that each of us can take, such as reading about something new 30 minutes a day, every day for a year. Such a simple move, reading, will profoundly change the life of the reader and will vastly increase his effectiveness as an involved and responsible citizen. I was so moved by Tom DeLay's point that we have to be on the offensive. Anybody disagree? Of course, we have to be proactive on the offensive. And Governor Jim Gilmore talked to us about the need for America to recognize its exceptionalism in order to stand against these threats. Did you say six critical geopolitical threats? Unlike the Cold War, which was much more symmetrical. It was really like a chess game. Now we're playing 7 levels of chess at the same time. It's critical. Ergo, America has to not only regain its exceptionalism, but strive for, in my view, a new dimension of exceptionalism. Let's call it true American exceptionalism, aimed at the 21st century. Our job is not done. It's not just about reliving the past. And the basis of that is our citizens. In order to be exceptional, we've got to regain our strength to deal with Russia, China, Iran, ISIS, the corruption inside of our company, the borders, what's happening to our next generation. Our strength has to be regained, and the strength lies in a center of gravity. And fellow citizens, that center of gravity is in your heart and in your mind. Changing hearts and mind in America is possible only, truly only, if people like you and me take the time, as Ben Carson advocates, to be educated and informed. I think there's two sides of this. One is to be informed, read 30 minutes a day, read the Washington Times at least for 10 minutes of that, WashingtonTimes.com, and in there you'll read an occasional op-ed from Governor Gilmore, you'll read a weekly column from Tom DeLay, you'll read a weekly column from Ben Carson. You get the former CIA and NSA director Michael Hayden, who called us to write for the Times. You get Monica Crowley from Fox News, who's now our online opinion editor. You get Wes Pruden, who's probably the best essayist in America. You get food for the mind, food for the soul. It's the information we need to do the battle we've got to do. As Tom DeLay said, take the offensive. The offensive means not killing the other side. We've got to win the hearts and minds. We've got to be persuasive. We've got to be able to pull people to our point of view, the way Ronald Reagan did, in the same tone. That's why I think the gathering of eagles is such a critical and important gathering. I see these, I know Mr. DeLay and Gilmore and McEwen, they travel all over the country like I do. We see gatherings like this, nothing like the gathering of eagles. This is really unique. But we see them all over the country. It gives us great hope. And one of the reasons this place is so special is because of Ames and Dama Courtwright. And I want you to join me in giving them a great round of applause for their hospitality. He did mention this, but he's always so humble, and I want to draw attention to this because it has to do with an example of historical thought leadership. I always like to tell our editors, especially when I have a chance to discuss on the opinion side, that Washington Times should stand for solution-oriented thought leadership. Big practice in business today is called content marketing. It's real important as activists, as citizens, as neighbors, that you be informed and you get comfortable with your own narrative so that you know how to express the most important truth of all, in my view, in this context, why you love America. Why do you love America? What does America mean to you? And be willing and able to express those sentiments in your natural language, informed by people like Gilmore, DeLay, McEwen, Pruden, Crowley, Carson, the Scripture. It's our job to be informed and to speak. With that, going back a few hundred years, one of Ames' ancestors, Fisher Ames, that he's proud of, but I'd like to lift this out of his speech, the phenomenal orator that he was, known in his day as one of the best orators in the American founding. He was called by the joint houses of the Senate and the House state legislature in Massachusetts in February of the year 1800. It was about 2 months after General George Washington passed away, which was in December of 1799. And he gave a eulogy for the deceased president. I'm just going to lift a final paragraph. Like the Milky Way, he was talking about Washington as a chief magistrate, as he appears like a pole star in this clear sky to direct the skillful statesman. His presidency will form an epoch, and be distinguished as the age of Washington. Already it assumes a high place in the political region. And here's the key point, the nut graph, as we say in media. Like the Milky Way, thinking of George Washington, his image whitens along the allotted portion of the hemisphere. The latest generations of men will survey through the telescopes of history the space where so many virtues blend their rays and delight to separate them into groups of distinct virtues. And the blessed illustration of them, the living monument, referring to the general, to which the first of patriots would have chosen to consign his fame, it is my earnest prayer to heaven that our country may subsist, he's speaking to us, even to that late day, 2014, in the plenitude of its liberty and happiness, and mingle its mild glory with Washington's. Fisher Ames said that, and just recently the Washington Times was the exclusive media sponsor for a very brave effort in Washington, D.C. It was a march for marriage, if you can believe it. A march to support traditional marriage between a man and a woman, headed up by the National Organization of Marriage, which is on the tip of the spear of protecting the definition of marriage to remain as a man and a woman. And you know the battles that are going on even in this state. And we did a special section to support that, and I wanted to show you what Ames Fisher did, what Ames, not Fisher Ames, Ames Courtright did, and the Gathering of Eagles has a full-page ad, a full-page statement here that we ran. This hit, every member of Congress gets 10 or 12 copies of this newspaper every day, and it was all over the country. So I really appreciate that from Ames Courtright. Let me mention a couple points about the Washington Times, and then 5 things that I think we can do together that make a difference. The Times was founded in 1982. Our motto is fearless reporting and American values. Fearless reporting and American values. We publish 5 days a week in print, but the most important fact is we've got 12 million unique visitors that come to our website every month, every day, so to speak. And that breaks down in this state to about 13,000 Oregonians in every congressional district. We have 5 congressional districts in this state. 13,000 of you read the Washington Times in every congressional district. About 2,000 people get our newsletter every day. And then we've got other databases that have about 60,000 to 100,000 people in every congressional district that contribute to conservative causes or Christian causes. It's a phenomenal opportunity to educate and reach people. The Washington Times not only has a website that is really excelling and ascending right now, but we're able to reach people on radio and television. Tom DeLay has a new radio program. We work with a digital mobile effort that can get ads out to every cell phone and a quarter mile from where we're all sitting about Gathering of Eagles. And we work with partners that have databases all over the country. The gentleman that did the marketing for the Passion of the Christ film, we've got tens of millions, literally 109 million email addresses there that we use to help get the word out. The Washington Times is really aiming to be the New York Times of the 21st century from a godly point of view. So let me conclude with 5 things that we can do. Based on the tremendous overview that we've heard so far about the problems that we face in the country, what is it that I can do, that you can do every day? See, I think we're in need, as Jim Gilmore said, of new strategy, a sophisticated foreign policy, no question about it. In the Cold War years, they would call it a grand strategy. I think there's a huge absence of God-inspired grand strategists that are working in Washington, because that's not who's in Washington right now, and that's what we need. But not just a grand strategy that deals with our domestic and international problems, but one that can be translated down to lifestyle and to community. So it's at the very top, the very macro basis, and all the way down to the micro, to what we can do. 5 things I'd like to leave you with, folks. The first is to pray. Every single day, take time. Take time, if you're together with your spouse, with your kids, with your friends, to pray. No matter where you go to church, we've got to pull the power of the Almighty and be like that magnetic field that attracts Him, to pray. How many are going to do that? I appreciate it. Appreciate it. God bless you. Number 2, as Carson says and others says, and doggone it's common sense, take time to read. Take time in your day to read, whether it's online in print, if you listen to stuff in the car, but stay educated. Stay educated. There's a lot going on. You don't need to know it all. Don't be burdened by it all. Find the passions, the interests that you've got. It may be certain things you've heard today, maybe economic issues, maybe there's social issues. Whatever it is, that's your narrative. It's your art. It's your oratory. Get informed. When you're informed, it gives you confidence. The Word gives you confidence. Number one is pray. Number two is read. Be informed. And read with a passion. We've got to win this battle, changing hearts and minds. We've got to win the debate. We can't annihilate the other side. We've got to change the middle. It's just the middle that's got to change to shift the country in the right direction. Number two, read. How many are going to do that? Can we count on it, please? From today. Third is speak. Speak. Whether you write it in an email, you write a little note card, call people on the phone. Pew Research did a study last year indicating how impactful it was when people share information about articles they've seen. A stunning poll, I use it all the time. When you send an email to a friend, a relative, a child, a neighbor, with a link to an article, whether it's to the Washington Times or any other publication, the Wall Street Journal, wherever you get your information, when you send a neighbor or a friend that article, the likelihood of a person clicking on the article and opening it up, 73%. That's huge. In business today, it's really vital to be an aggregator, almost like you're a mini publisher. So you got your passions, you've got your issues, 2, 3, or 4 issues you're current on. Take articles about that and send them out to people. It'll awaken them. When you're knocking on doors, be willing to speak, be willing to talk. That's the way we get the word out. Fourth, when you're talking, ask. I remember when I ran for the House of Delegates in Virginia, when Mr. Gilmore was the Attorney General, I believe. I got great advice. If you're going to run for office, you got to be willing to ask for votes, and you got to be willing to ask for money. You got to look someone in the eye, shake her hand, shake his hand, and can I count on your vote? And it comes from my heart. Can I count on your vote, sir? Ask. Ask people to get involved. If every one of us did that just once a day for the next 78 days or however many days before the election, 87 days, I think of the impact that would have. We got some great candidates in the races in Oregon. It's going to take people getting out to vote. It's an off-year election. The probability in the U.S. Senate election is about a 38% turnout. I read one study that looked at Oregon. There's 269,000 estimated Christians who are registered to vote that aren't going to vote. And it takes to get 3% margin in the U.S. Senate race. This was George Barna's projection. It would only take something like 32,000 additional votes. That's nothing. That's like every one of us getting out in our congregations and our neighborhoods and spreading the word. It's possible to make a big change that the media, other media than the Washington Times, doesn't expect. Right? So ask people to be involved. And finally, number 5 is to connect. Stay connected. Like you come to this event, stay connected. Stay connected. Don't let yourself get isolated when things look really heavy. You need to be connected, part of a team. We're the nation. We're the soul of the nation. And there's folks like you everywhere in the country. It blows me away. Pray. Read, speak, ask, and stay connected. That's 5 things that we can do. There's plenty others, but I want to leave you with a quote from my favorite president. I'm sure you would agree. I actually have 2 favorite presidents. Excuse me, I wrote it down because I didn't commit it to memory yet. The first is from Abraham Lincoln. This was in 1861, March 4th, and I'm going to finish in 1 minute. It was his first inaugural address. Imagine the situation. Jefferson Davis had been elected the President of the Confederacy just 2 weeks before this speech was given. And the President said, President Lincoln, he's facing the division of the country. You know the history. We are not enemies, he said, but friends. This begs the question of our motivation in terms of messaging. What's the heart behind the words we share to persuade and convince others to come to a rational point of view of who it means to be American? We can't hate. We can't be overwhelmed with fear. We've got to be attractive. I think Lincoln gives guidance here. We are not enemies, he said, but friends. We must not be enemies, though passion may have strained. It must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic chords of memory will swell again, touched as surely they will be by the better angels of our nature. I beg you, seek the better angel of your nature. Lead with that. Speak from that center. As a true American, to make a truly exceptional country. And let's finish with the words of Ronald Reagan. He spoke at CPAC, March 8th, 1985. It's a very famous speech. I encourage you to get online and read it. Once during the campaign, Reagan said, "This is a wonderful time to be alive," and I meant that. I meant that we're lucky not to live in pale and timid times. We've been blessed with the opportunity to stand for something. That's who we are. For liberty and freedom and fairness. And these are things worth fighting for, worth devoting our lives to. And we have good reason to be hopeful and optimistic. He concludes, we've made such progress already. So let's go forth with good cheer, with stout hearts, happy warriors, out to seize back a country and a world. God bless you, ladies and gentlemen, and may God keep you and your families, and may God bless America.